Hello, my name is Michaela Lewis, and for my project, I studied leatherback sea turtles. The leatherback sea turtle is currently listed as an endangered species under the Endangered Species Act. It has the widest global distribution of any sea turtle, undertaking long migrations across the ocean. Each population inhabits different regions and has adapted to unique oceanographic conditions. This results in varying migration routes, nesting habitats, and environmental preferences. They also have long generation times, typically nesting only every 2 to 4 years. After my research, my hypothesis is due to ongoing population decline, habitat shifts, reproductive imbalance, and nesting site vulnerability, leatherback sea turtles will not adapt to climate change and will become extinct. For an overview, I will introduce 3 relevant evolutionary concepts, present scientific evidence for each concept, explain how these contribute to the species' vulnerability, and conclude by tying everything together and revisiting my hypothesis. My first concept is genetic drift. Genetic drift refers to the random changes in allele frequencies in a population. This can cause loss of genetic diversity, which ultimately limits the ability of a species to adapt. In leatherback turtles, the most relevant form of gene drift is the bottleneck effect caused by rapid population decline. My evidence for this is in a study by Benson et al., where they examined Central California leatherback populations. They found an estimated 600 to 1,900 turtles being killed annually due to fishery bycatch, which is causing a decline in population. Also, the harvesting of eggs in adults, habitat degradation of nesting beaches, and the poorly understood effects of climate change. From 1990 to 2017, there was an overall 80% decrease in population size, which is equivalent to 5.6 annual decline. This matters as the population shrinks, genetic diversity is decreasing, which makes it harder for the species to adapt to climate change. This is essential for long-term survival and contributes to my hypothesis in which I believe the species will become extinct in the future. The next evolutionary concept is niche specialization. Niche specialization is where populations adapt to specific characteristics of their habitat. This makes them less flexible when conditions change. Climate change is predicted to cause shifts in both migration patterns and the ability for leatherback sea turtles to forage effectively. My evidence for this is in an observational study from Willis Norton et al., in which they tracked the leatherback species in the Eastern Pacific range. They looked at oceanographic preferences and used data to predict future impacts of climate change. They found that the Eastern Pacific populations preferred low sea surface temperatures and low surface chlorophyll A levels. They also predicted future shifts in temperature, currents, and chlorophyll due to climate change. These changes are ultimately going to alter food availability and habitat suitability. Eastern Pacific turtles have different environmental needs compared to, for example, Atlantic populations. As the oceans are changing rapidly due to climate change, the turtles that are specialized in specific habitats may not survive in these unfamiliar conditions. Combined with the reduced genetic variation from other human impacts and also long generation times, this will continue to slow adaptations to these environmental changes, ultimately leading to extinction. My third evolutionary concept is phenotypic plasticity. This is the ability for an organism to express different phenotypes in response to environmental changes. I have two examples that relate to phenotypic plasticity. The first one involves the increase in air and sea temperature due to climate change, causing a reproductive imbalance, and sea level rise, causing nesting site vulnerability. My evidence for the reproductive imbalance was found in the observational study from Patino Martinez et al. They examined leatherback sea turtles in the Caribbean, logged temperatures inside the incubating nest, and looked at the sex ratio of the hatchlings. They found that the ratio was female skewed. This ultimately could lead to feminization of hatchlings and cause a reproductive imbalance, where there are not enough males to sustain future generations. This is especially harmful when the genetic diversity is already low. Males will be more likely in cooler conditions. Leatherback sea turtles need phenotypic plasticity to change their nesting behaviors and possibly nest in cooler areas. The leatherbacks show limited plasticity, which is dangerous and could lead, and I predict will lead, to extinction in the future. My evidence for nesting site vulnerability is found in an observational study by Cott et al. In this study, they examined nesting beaches and measured embryo success depending on overwash. They wanted to understand how sea level rise will impact nests. For a background on leatherback nesting sites, they usually nest closer to the sea, causing the nest to often be destroyed by high tide. And they also nest deeper, which could cause possible suffocation by overwash. Overwashed nests had more dead embryos and a lower success rate. Without enough plasticity to adjust their nesting behavior overall, like possibly choosing cooler or safer areas further inland, this vulnerability will worsen and lead to extinction. In conclusion, my evidence shows that due to current population decline, habitat shifts, reproductive imbalance, and nesting site vulnerability, leatherback sea turtles will not adapt to climate change and will become extinct. Ultimately, human behaviors are decreasing populations, creating a loss of genes due to genetic bottleneck. This is preventing populations from adapting to the environmental changes we see through climate change. While human activity is the primary driver of these threats, the only way the species can survive is if humans significantly change their behavior by protecting nesting sites, reducing bycatch, and restoring populations to restore their genetic diversity. Unless these efforts succeed at a large scale, which is unlikely, leatherbacks will not adapt to climate change, and extinction will be unavoidable.